CEL, Communications and Entertainment Limited.
Welcome to another movie from the Bill Collins movie collection, and what a great one it is. Gunga Din. Gunga Din was written in 1890, when Rudyard Kipling was in his early 20s. Gunga Din was one of his barrack room ballads, and they were so popular towards the end of the last century that they were often recited and given musical settings and performed in music halls. Gunga Din was one of the greatest favourites of them all. And it's not surprising that Gunga Din, in fact, should be turned into a film. It was turned into a very short silent film earlier in the century, but in the late 1930s, RKO Radio acquired the rights and decided to make it its big production, not just for 1939, but virtually for the decade. It was the most expensive undertaking ever by RKO, and what an extraordinary film it is. Gunga Din was directed by one of the legendary directors of the golden years of Hollywood, George Stevens. The film had a wonderful script. At one stage, the novelist William Faulkner was working on Gunga Din, and so did Ben Hecht and Charles MacArthur, and they used inspiration from their famous play, The Front Page. If you look closely and listen to Gunga Din, you'll see some of that inspiration there. The casting is practically perfect. The three male leads virtually play, under different names, Kipling's famous Soldiers 3, a collection of stories published prior to the Barrack Room Ballads. And what a trio we have here. Cary Grant, Victor McLaglen, who of course was renowned for his Academy Award in the mid-30s for The Informer, and the delightful Douglas Fairbanks Jr., who tells some interesting stories about the making of Gunga Din in his recent autobiography, Salad Days. Gunga Din himself is portrayed by Sam Jaffe. Why not Sabu, you might ask? Well, it appears that Alexander Korda, who was making pre-production plans for The Thief of Baghdad, wanted to retain Sabu for that. So screen tests were made and everyone liked Sam Jaffe. And for screen villainy, you could hardly go further for the relish with which Edoardo Cianelli plays his part in this film. He's unforgettable. And here's a very charming young lady. She'd have been under contract at RKO for a few years, but her career was virtually in the doldrums. She appeared in Gunga Din, romantically teamed with Douglas Fairbanks Jr. Within a short while, she was playing one of the leading roles in Rebecca, Joan Fontaine. Gunga Din was shot around Lone Pine, California, the same area where much of The Charge of the Light Brigade and Lives of a Bengal Lancer was shot. I'm sure you'll find this film thoroughly stimulating, very funny, and very moving. Gunga Din is a wonderful film, isn't it? It's interesting to note that Rudyard Kipling's widow took umbrage at the depiction of Rudyard Kipling by Reginald Sheffield in Gunga Din, and his appearance had to be taken out of the film before it was allowed to be shown in the British Commonwealth in 1939, and for many years it wasn't available at all. But it's one of the most requested movies for me to present, and I'm thrilled to present it for you now. See it again as soon as you can, you'll love it. And did you notice the music by Alfred Newman? Other great movies in my collection at the moment include these three. Mrs. Miniver is such a special film. Greer Garson won her Academy Award for Mrs. Miniver. There were many other Academy Awards given to the film. Greer Garson, Walter Pidgeon, and a brilliant supporting cast. A film you'll want to see again and again. I love it so much. And I also love Rachel and the Stranger. Loretta Young plays Rachel, William Holden plays the man she marries, and Robert Mitchum is the stranger. What an adorable film. I do so want you to see Rachel and the Stranger. And of course, Citizen Kane, Orson Welles' masterpiece, one of the most talked about and one of the most highly regarded films of all time. By the way, if you want any particular information about any of the films I present in my collection, don't hesitate to write to me, care of the CEL office in your state. And now here's a preview of Citizen Kane.
There begins the most fantastic movie experience of all time. Here at last, from CEL Home Video, is the masterpiece and first feature, written, produced and directed by Orson Welles.
Mr. Kane was a man who lost almost everything he had.
I've got to make the New York Enquirer as important to New York as the gas in that light.
Charles Foster Kane.
Really, Charles? People will think...
What I tell them to think.
Rosebud? I tell you about Rosebud. How much is it worth to you? $1,000?
No, I don't know many people.
I know too many people. I guess we're both lonely.
You don't love me. You want me to love you? Sure. I'm Charles Foster Kane. Whatever you want, just name it and it's yours. But you gotta love me.
I'm Charles Foster Kane!
If I hadn't been very rich, I might have been a really great man.
As it must to all men, death came to Charles Foster Kane.
Rosebud.
Will anyone ever know the secret of Citizen Kane?
CEL, Communications and Entertainment Limited.